we will hear our last speaker, who's Yuan from Japan, who arrived. Yuan, over to you.
My talk would be a Q&A session. So, but before giving my answers, I would like to raise up my voice for those Asian women who were killed by a white man in Atlanta in the US. I would like to just talk about this for a while. And it was very shocking news, and I used to get very upset and angry at this hate crime. And that crime was clearly a mixture of racism and sexism, no matter how he denied it wasn't. I'd love you to be aware how Asian women are seen in the Western societies, because this is not just our problem, and our problem is just like Asian problem, but it is also a problem of Western societies as well. I mean, this is how I feel, but anyway. And it felt like I was too late to speak up for ourselves, because discrimination against us used to be very vague or just ignorant, although this discrimination is clearer and more violent nowadays. I still regret what I hadn't done anything about this ignorance, since I sensed subtle apathy about Asians in Western societies when I studied abroad. So again, I ask you to think about us as an individual ethnicity, a separate case, especially when you talk about fetishism towards women. And I know many Westerners love Asian cultures, and I do appreciate it a lot, because thanks to our cultures, I made a lot of good friends, but we are more than cultures, to be honest. So please know that we are also living human beings too.
What is the current law and situation with gender identity ideology in Japan? And how did you realize transgenderism is a threat to women's rights?
In Japan, the situation is when men who identify as JID and as women have, and those who have finished operation and changed their family register and census, they are socially recognized as women. And if they still have male body and they are not, then they are not allowed to go into women's private spaces, such as women's bathroom and like lockers room and hot springs for women. And I feel that I have seen similar cases in Japan as other Western countries. Like some women's march organization in Japan created a sign card saying everyone's friendly feminism, or we don't allow discrimination for trans women. And also, according to some radical feminists on Twitter, trans debates got involved into trans debates got involved into Women's March organization in Japan a few years ago. Then many feminists felt that the march, then many feminists left the march because of that. And a similar situation happened to the flower demo, which was made for female survivors initially. However, this flower demo organization had started including trans women and men, which means those who have male body, into the movement or the demo, which also caused the women to leave. After that, those who had left created another demo called Fire Demo, and this is exclusive for biological women. And we have a lot more cases. For example, there is a YouTuber who claimed that cross-dressers can enter women's bathroom. He even recommended to have a medical certificate to prove that they are trans women, just in case. His remark clearly showed his ignorance and hatred of women. He said that women don't want to get involved in troubles, neither do they have free time to call the police. So talking about how I reached the problem as well, and then I basically gathered information on Twitter, and I hadn't had an open Twitter account when I came to know this movement. However, I used a different account to browse feminism trend. And while searching these topics, I saw a few group of people talking about a self-ID issue, the more I studied about this trend, the more suspicious the whole movement became. And there were many problems that hadn't been answered by so-called trans allies, while legislation started being enacted. Thus, I felt a sense of crisis, which led me to start an open Twitter account and sign up for WHRC and like this organization.
Why do some people support this movement?
In Japan, to watch those who don't have any questions about this quote, like trans women are women, it seems that they are trapped in an Occidentalism. This is just my observation, but yeah, I think this the Occidentalism in Japan just I think this plays a huge role. So so-called trans allies tend to believe that the Western societies, especially English-speaking countries, are the best on account of our historical background after World War II. Thus, trans allies believe that Japan has to follow every trend that's happening in the US, for example. So this is why many Japanese people and so-called like liberal people like treat transgenderism as progressive and also a correct movement. What's more, many Japanese critics of feminism support many Japanese critics of feminism support the trans movement as well. The thing is, we haven't developed either gender studies or women's studies as a major in Japanese universities. Although some universities have these courses as majors, but not as common as in the US or other countries all over the world. So there are fewer feminism scholars, plus many of them think we have to catch up with the feminism trend in the Western societies. As well as I've seen discourses on Twitter, this is just my observation.
And how do you think gender identity ideology relates to Japanese culture?
I have to say that it's not directly related to Japanese culture, but however, in part, our anime culture is somehow applied to some trans women as a proof of their real self. There is an article that's called Japanese Cartoon Porn Helped Me Understand the Trans Identity, and which explained how this white man realized how he was initially a woman after he found Japanese porn anime. That was a surprise to me. And another example is a package of Ostrogen. It features a Japanese porn or manga, like a cartoon character, and this is a girl who looks like a little girl and a blessing. And this is a crucial problem to us as Japanese and Asian women. Maybe this topic can go back to the speech that I just did before this question. I mean, this Q&A session happened, but so Japanese men's porn consumption mark the third in the world. Plus, many of them protect this respectful representation of women in manga or anime, which now totally affect other countries' men's behavior towards women, especially Asian ones. This kind of a representation of women in manga anime are now used as a as a proof of trans women, and also the package of Ostrogen. And for me, it looks like a clear line that my culture and yes, this transgenderism is somehow related to each other, and it seems like they share the same view towards women. Yeah, it's like a gender stereotype or just like objectification as well. In Japan, as I said, like people somehow believe that believe that the self-ID issue as well. And then, yeah, even though we don't have a law, like concrete law towards this issue, however, maybe, yeah, some, yeah, organization and, yeah, people can work for this movement, can make this law happen. Yeah, like we have feminism organizations which is against transgenderism. However, that it's kind of really difficult to show up our faces, our real name for that. I mean, for this issue. So I don't think it's this, yeah, this movement is not as big as in other countries as well. So that, for example, maybe it would be really hard to talk like this, like showing my face and my name and, you know, somehow the identification. And, you know, this is recorded as well. So I think in Japan, we are really afraid of being threatened, yeah, online and in real life as well. So that we do have some organizations who are critical of transgenderism, but yeah, it's not really, yeah, how to say, in front of the line.